I don't want to sort of darken the mood too much.
Well,
this
you
may still be a little bit of a tender subject, but you did split in the 80s and stop working
Apparently
with
we
each
did.
other.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask why that happened. Maybe, Michael, would you like to give your view of why that happened?
It was an amicable split. And you know, when things happen in life, you know, when you break up with any kind of partnership, really, you don't gain anything unless you look at yourself through the telescope with which other people are seeing you. You know, otherwise there's no insight, there's no gain. So there's really two things to say about that for me. One is, thank God I left, because I have had, you know, an extraordinarily fortunate and entertaining life since then. It didn't feel like, thank God I'm leaving at the time, because I was, quite shocked. But looking at myself, I think that I was, and still am, you know, somebody who is interested in personal development, personal change, personal transformation. And at that time, I took a couple of courses which for me were astonishingly valuable, and astonishingly valuable to this day. But I think that my behavior at that time changed. And to some extent I was aware of that change, and to some extent I probably wasn't aware of that change. So I think looking at myself through the telescope of the people that were working with me, I was probably appeared pretty disengaged and pretty much less interested in the direction the company was taking, and in fact less interested in the company probably in some ways than I realized that I was. And I think that's probably what brought about the split. But as I say, it wasn't a hostile situation. And I remember at the time, I don't know if Wally remembers, you know, I gave everybody a plant, and I wrote everybody a little letter of appreciation of what I liked about them, what I valued in them. And it was actually quite a moving event. It wasn't a harsh breakup. It was, I think, from their perspective, I was somebody who was inhibiting where they wanted to go. From my perspective, I think it was, I don't think I would have wanted to have gone that way anyway, but I think that I was probably not useful in the kind of frame of mind that I was in those days to them. I think that's probably what happened.
Wally, does that sound...
I think Michael's put it very appropriately. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think it's true what Michael says.
So I just want to ask you one final Wolff Olins question before we move on to life after Wolff Olins. And that is, I'm quite intrigued by the notion where people have companies which bear their names, but then those companies live on past their involvement with it. So how do you now feel about Wolff Olins? Do you feel a sense of responsibility? Do you, if you see a piece of work done by Wolff Olins that you don't like, do you feel bad about that? I mean, how do you feel emotionally now about the company that still bears both of your names?
Well, my view of Wolff Olins is it's the second best company around. Good company, nearly as good as the company I work for. I think that they've produced some very good work since I've gone. It's quite different if you're part of a very large organization. They're part of Omnicom. It's quite different to have the same kind of goals and to have the same, to expect the same kinds of achievement, because you're in a much broader framework. But I think it's a very good company. I genuinely believe that.
Michael?
And I'm pleased that it is. I'm proud of it. Not as proud as I am of my own company, but proud of it.
I still work with them a little bit. So I had an experience when I went into their New York office. I was looking for a design company to work with in New York, and I couldn't find one as good as them. And when I went in there, I thought, in a way, it's quite a subtle distinction here. I thought that the boldness of Wolff Olins had moved into arrogance. Now, there's a very fine line between boldness and arrogance. I don't think we were arrogant. I think we were bold. And when I went into that New York office, I could just feel a slight sense of arrogance, which I was saddened by, because I think arrogance is a very unfortunate quality in people. On the other hand, when I compare them with, I don't know anything much about Wally's current company, but when I compare them with the larger companies with which they compete, I think they're in another realm. I think they're vastly superior still. Why? Because I think they have a greater respect for the intellect in human beings than other people. And although I've, in a way, deplored the fact that they had become, like many other companies, a repeat order service business, which means ordinary in some ways, ordinary in the way that matched their clients, you know, projects that people can buy. And we hadn't quite been that. I kind of felt the same as Wally just said. I mean, I feel proud of them. I don't feel in any way compromised by the fact that my name is over the door, because I still think it's an exhilarating and exciting company. And although they do work occasionally, I'm not going to say anything about the Olympic symbol, but they do work occasionally, which I think is poor, but then who doesn't? I think it's a terrific company, and I'm proud of it, and I also feel that they are still capable of surprise and raising the game.
I think that what Michael and I can both justifiably be proud of is that we did, not just together, but collectively, the whole company at that time, when it was very small, when we had 15 or 20 people or whatever it was, create a culture, create a tradition of intellectual curiosity and of experimentation in everything that we did, which has sunk very deeply into the culture of the organization and still exists, and probably will for some time. I think we can reasonably say that we did achieve that, and it's something that I'm actually very pleased about. I want them to continue to do well. I want them to be good. I'd hate it if they were considered to be in exactly the same category as their peer group. I would hate it, because I don't think their peer group are any good.